What is the toxic type 8 man and how can you spot him? I'm Olympia, a purposeful personality typologist, and here we go. I already drew for you the main characteristic of type 8, which is anger. So in the Enneagram, type 8 is in the anger center, in the gut center. One way how you can describe them is as assertive, another way is as emotionally real. And also in connection with the assertiveness, these types are described as it types by some. I mean, it, written like this, from the Freudian ego, superego, it system, where it is basically the area of pure instinctual desires, impulses, and things like that. So the type 8 is not necessarily always impulsive, but actually driven very much so by their gutsy desire for things. Hence, they are often associated with lust in the Enneagram system. And I have talked about the lust in the type 8 in a previous video of mine. Type 8s, when they're unhealthy especially, want dominion over people. Hence, I also call type 8 the dominant. So it can be dominion over people. It can be just dominion or power in general. Most of what we consider to be toxic masculinity, a lot of it is connected to this type. Most men in the world, I would venture out to say, have a type 8 connection. Stronger or less strong, to varying degrees. Now, you can have type 8 as a main type, meaning it's the main configuration for you. With the Enneagram types, it's the, you could say, psycho-emotional way how you attempt to attain your instinctual desires. And I've also made videos about the instincts, of course. Enneagram type is tied into identity, and I also call them ego identity. Ego identity. The average unhealthy 8 is overly identified with power and attaining power. When they don't get their way, they become angry, furious. Their anger fuels them to attain power. It's strongly connected with each other. Like I said, masculinity, the stereotypical patriarch, and also matriarch, if we want to mention women briefly, are power-driven. You could maybe say, okay, patriarchy is a very type 8 system. Type 8s will attempt to attain some kind of leadership position, to feel more in control, to feel more powerful. So on a more neutral level, that would be, CEO, bosses, leaders, etc. By the way, that does not mean that every CEO or boss is a type 8. There are also other types, of course, who attain the same positions, but with different motivations or backgrounds or identities, ego identities. With the type 8, it's always tied to the feeling of being powerful and control, to have the higher authority in a sense. So also why I drew a triangle here, because they want to be at the pinnacle of power. Once again, other types might also want to attempt that. I'd say a lot of type 3s are mistyped as 8 or vice versa, because type 3s, they also might want to strive towards, positions of power. But for a type 3, it's very much about their image. So type 3 is an image type, a sadness type in the Enneagram, and they are the quote-unquote stereotypical narcissists when they're unhealthy, because it's all about them and how they're perceived. They are much more, image conscious than the type 8 is. They are also fellow it types or assertive types in the Enneagram, so they can be very similar and attain very similar positions. But once again, with the type 8, it's fueled by dominion, by power, by anger. Whereas with the type 3, it's more about often hidden, unacknowledged sadness and wanting to come across as cool or successful in the eyes of society. With type 8, it's much less so the case. Of course, a lot of 8s, if not most 8s, or even all 8s, if I'm really honest here, have also connection to type 3, so there can be overlaps. But I'm really talking about the main expression of this type. Another misconception also is with type 6 in the Enneagram, which might sometimes also have bursts of anger coming out. So like I said, type 8 is an anger type, and when they're average to unhealthy, they're kind of known for having a hot temper. So they're known for these bursts of anger. You can even see that in types like 9 wing 8 or 7 wing 8. Wings are part of your main psychology, but they are less strong compared to the main type on average. But once again, just because you have outbursts of anger does not automatically mean that you are an 8 or that you have an 8 wing. Sometimes it's also connected to type 6 in the Enneagram, and type 6 is fear-based. So let me just, to make it clear, this is about anger. The main driving emotion that the type has is anger. With type 6, it's fear. So a 6 might have outbursts of anger in order to feel less threatened. And they might use their anger in order to threat people as well, but it always boils down to an inner fear they have. They feel a lack of security within themselves, a lack of safety, so then it bursts out of them and they try to attain some kind of feeling of security or safety within themselves. With type 8, that is not the main force. Once again, it is anger and the desire to dominate and to be domineering. It comes from a desire to expand themselves and their territory. 6s don't really have that desire to have authority or domination over other people per se. They don't really have that. So they rarely become, CEOs of huge corporations or big leaders, etc., etc. Type 8s are inherently extroverts. And I know there's so many people online who claim otherwise, who will tell you, no, I'm an introvert and I'm a type 8, or I'm an ambivert and a type 8. Maybe ambivert, but generally speaking, I would say extrovert, maybe leaning towards ambiversion, but overall extrovert. Let me show you how. First of all, this is a very extroverted way of behavior, right? But another way to see it, let's see the 8 here, right? There's fear of influence, or influence is not the right word, because actually type 3 is more of an influencer type. Type 8 wants to expand power, assertiveness, authority, territory in a sense. All anger types have issues with space, autonomy, and also to some extent their space around them, their territory. So with type 8, if you want to have power, you need to exert it outwards. Power doesn't really exist in a vacuum. In order to have power in the world, in order to dominate, there's always someone else in the mix. There's always something outside of yourself to have power over. That is just the quintessential type 8 positioning. It has this expansive energy outwards, and you can imagine these might be people, or it can be objects, or it can be anything really. Either way, it's an outward energy. Hence, all 8s are extroverts, okay? And not all extroverts are 8s, but the 8s we are talking of are extroverts. I would say in my system, my Typevolution types, you can find them on my blog, typevolution.com/tvt. They are associated with the administrator, which is similar to ESTJ or LSE in socionics, and the entrepreneur. It's associated with ENTJ and LIE in socionics. By the way, the entrepreneur in a lot of cases is attributed to other types and other systems. I think other people often assume that this is the ESTP personality, but I actually disagree. But you have to look at my blog to really understand where I'm coming from with my entrepreneur description. And I will give you more of an example later on in the video. Usually the wealthiest, most powerful people in the world are overwhelmingly of this type, the type 8, specifically the entrepreneur type. This is just how it is nowadays in our modern society. So if you want my help with this in particular, if you want me to type your personality, or if you want me to help you with dating men and dating men that have a suitable personality type, but also of course are not super toxic, you can find all the information on typevolution.com/services. Let's go into some other examples or traits of how these people show up in the world and how you can spot them. Shouting and humiliation are some of the most common behaviors that I see. And with humiliation, it's really to make the other people feel horrible, but not just make them feel horrible, also to make them feel like they are at the bottom of the food chain. Harvey Weinstein, he was also known for just having a bad temper, screaming at his subordinates or his colleagues, whatever you want to call it, just being horrible towards people. And the fact that this also happens in public and it is a means to an end, like it's a means to exert power, domination, is quite telling, and it is really telling for toxic type 8s. Here's what Salma Hayek said about her encounters with Harvey Weinstein in the New York Times. The article is called "Harvey Weinstein is My Monster Too," and it's written by her. Some quotes that I found very, very telling about type 8, toxic type 8. And of course, this is just one account, but there have been several stories, and Harvey Weinstein has been put into prison, so we can pretty much assume the overall gist is accurate. She had to say no several times, so that's what she says. No to me taking a shower with him, no to letting him watch me take a shower, no to letting him give me a massage, etc., etc., etc. Okay? And then she says, and with every refusal came Harvey's Machiavellian rage. I don't think he hated anything more than the word no. The absurdity of his demands went from getting a furious call in the middle of the night asking me to fire my agent for a fight he was having with him about a different movie with a different client, to physically dragging me out of the opening gala of the Venice Film Festival, which was in honor of Frida, so I could hang out at his private party with him and some women I thought were models, but I was told later were high-priced prostitutes. The range of his persuasion tactics went from sweet-talking me to that one time when, in an attack of fury, he said the terrifying words, "I will kill you, don't think I can't." Ironically, once we started filming, the sexual harassment stopped, but the rage escalated. We paid the price for standing up to him nearly every day of shooting. Once in an interview, he said Julie and I were the biggest ball busters he had ever encountered, which we took as a compliment. I didn't go to the test. I anxiously awaited to receive the news. The film scored 85. And again, I heard Harvey raged. In the lobby of a theater, after the screening, he screamed at Julie. He balled up one of the scorecards and threw it at her. It bounced off her nose. Her partner, the film's composer Elliot Goldenthal, stepped in and Harvey physically threatened him. And also here's something interesting. She says, I have to say sometimes he was kind, funny and witty, and that was part of the problem. You just never knew which Harvey you were going to get. I'm thinking this is probably his 9-wing coming out, as a side note. If they're very toxic and very unhealthy, they will try to take advantage of you, and they will be not taking a no for an answer. I have to say it's very dark, but very dark, unhealthy type 8. Obviously there's also overlaps with like psychopathy and things like that. But I think psychopathy also has different ways how it can express itself. When it comes to the type 8 way, really they get a kick out of you not being able to say no. They get a kick out of you being at their mercy, because once again it fuels their ego or power trip, really. So yeah, if you make sure you're not in any situation where you are alone with them, where there's no escape. So yeah, don't just go to their home, to their place or their hotel, like how the case was with Harvey Weinstein, where, you know, the girls would just, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do a massage at his place in the hotel, and then they go there alone, and of course he would try to assault them and things like that. So really make sure you are not alone with them at any capacity. It's not worth it, okay? Always be in public spaces. Once again, also different types of men can become physical with you know, domestic violence and things like that. It's not just 8, but usually there is an 8 connection at the very least. That is very unhealthy. Another notorious example, Jeffrey Epstein, and I have to say, unfortunately, he inspired me to make this video. The way how he did it, just like Harvey Weinstein, by the way, it seems like there's a cycle of abuse somewhere going on, probably in their past. Their ancestors were abused, right? And then now they're abusing people, so it's not an excuse for what they're doing, but it's a sign, right? He really did this in the social sphere, where he made sure that he knew powerful, influential people in order to boost his own power that he can then use to fulfill his dark instinctual desires. So I'd say both Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein were SXSO. I made a video about the dark SXSO stacking. This is an instinctual stacking, so sexual social instincts, by the way. They made sure they gained power, and also they knew what other people wanted. So the id personalities, because they're so much in touch with, you know, this gutsy like desire for things, or lust if you want to call it, they also kind of can tell what other people want. And both Harvey and Jeffrey, they, another trait by the way, made sure that they try to empower people. They try to empower young women with, let's say, their goals. Oh, you want to become this. Let's say you want to become an actress. Oh, you want to become a model. Oh, you want to do this, that, etc., etc. So they know, okay, this is what you want to attain, and let me get you that. Let me help you get that. Let me use my power to make you achieve that. And if they were healthy, that would be great, right? If they were healthy variants of this type, that would be awesome. But of course, there's a twist, right? So with the toxic type 8s, there is a twist. With the toxic, especially male type 8, but yeah, there is the twist. And they empower people, but at what cost, right? They would then abuse them. When I saw also the Epstein house, there were so many symbols, once again, of power, domination, subjugation, especially his countless pictures and statues. Here's one more example, this time of an administrator, aka ECJ LSC, unhealthy type 8. That would be Jamie Spears, the father of Britney Spears. He put Britney Spears under a conservatorship with him as the conservator for around a decade. And in that time, he controlled her finances, her personal life, and also her career. And this is more typical of an administrator in several different ways, but oftentimes I see administrators exerting their power and influence mostly within the family unit. So this is more common in family structures, especially in combination with the self-preservation instinct. But this is just one example. He did this all under the guise of taking care of her, making sure she's well, but ultimately he was mainly profiting from her financially, and she didn't see any of that money in that time. And at the very end, I want to say to anyone who is part of, you know, like typology communities where people claim to be type 8s, the vast majority of people online who claim to be type 8 are not type 8. So once again, there's also other ways how men can express quote-unquote toxic masculinity, and you don't have to be a type 8 to, you know, abuse people. So you will also find other people of other types to do horrible things. But overall, like I said, I think, like I said earlier, type 6 and 3 are the most common mistyped people. Sometimes also 7-wing 8 might mistype as 8 as well. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you've noticed any other common type 8 misbehaviors. Alright, I hope you stay safe out there, and until next time, bye!